Welcome back. Today I'm going to show you how I made something I've been wanting to make for a long time, and that's a number sign for our house. Right now we have a small one. It's got black writing with a brown background, so it doesn't really show up very well, and at night it doesn't show up at all. So about a year ago I made this Star Wars inspired number sign. I was going to put styrene in where the numbers are, backlight it with some LEDs, but that never really happened. It just kind of sat on my workbench for a long time. And then I was thinking, we have a tropical lanai on the front of our house that's all Hawaiian. It's a place where we like to have coffee, and I thought, you know what would tie in really well with that is a surfboard. So I designed this out of wood and 3D printing materials. So these are 3D printed. This is just carved on my CNC, and it's got some backlighting on there. And if you're interested in knowing how I built this in detail, stick around and I'll show you the mistakes I made along the way and some of the things that worked really well. And at the end of the video, I'm going to show you how it looks when it's all lit up at night. Let's take a look at how I designed this surfboard. I did it in Fusion 360, which is what I usually use for CAD software. I made the surfboard design and then I put the numbers in, and I used Fusion at first, but I didn't like their text formatting, so I needed to get something a little bit better, because when I enlarge these are about 6 inches or so tall. I was running into a problem where the edges were a little jagged, and I didn't really like that. So I was going to either go to the internet and get some SVG numbers, or I could use another piece of software that I have, which is called VCarve Pro. I use that for CNC carving, and I just made the numbers in there and I exported them as a DXF file. You can see these numbers are made up of a bunch of different offsets. I'll show you the one that's really important. Distance between this and this is 0.2 millimeters, because I would like to have the cutout on the CNC just a little bit larger than what the numbers are going to be, so that they fit in properly. There's a little bit of a gap. So I'm just going to show you the number 2. It is already designed with CNC in mind. What I did is I rounded over the edges, so there's a 1/4 inch round over here, so my bit can come in here and just carve that out without any problems. I used a 1/4 inch bit. Now I'm just going to flip this around, and you can see that some of those offsets were because I needed an overhang here to sit on top of the board, and then I have this cavity where all the LEDs are going to go into. So I did that for every one of the numbers. Worked out pretty good. And let's just go over to the CNC program. I'll just show you for curiosity what that program looks like and how it's going to cut out on this CNC. Here's VCarve Pro. You can see that I've put my stock on an angle. That way I can maximize the amount of cut I can do on this size of a CNC. This is a 32 by 32 inch carve area. And I put it here in such an orientation so that I can utilize this piece of stock that I have. And if you take a look at my paths, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different things that are going to be happening. Just zoom in here a little bit. And I have a laser path. So I've got a laser on my CNC that I designed. There's a link in the description for a video you can watch on that. And it just travels around the stock to make sure none of the clamps are going to be in the way. And that's pretty cool. And then I have the outline with a little 1/16 inch end mill, and it's just going to carve all these different lines. And in hindsight, I shouldn't have done that. I should have carved it a little bit more shallow. It's really hard to paint later, so I wouldn't recommend that. Maybe if you had a stronger laser, maybe to etch that in so you could paint better. And then the inner numbers, those are these parts here. I wanted to cut those out so I could pop them into my 3D model. And then my profile, so it cut out the numbers as well. And then the outline of the entire board. So let's just take a look and see if I can preview all of them. So let's do that. So it's cutting everything out. There's the numbers, and you can see that I've got these tabs in there to hold the numbers in place so that they don't fling out and get caught in the bit. So That's important. There we go. So I will trim those tabs off when I am done, and then these inserts here are going to pop into my 3D models, and then the entire board will get popped out and painted. So that's how I design my CNC file. Let's take a look at these numbers and how I'm going to light them up. I really wanted the light to be pretty bright in here, so I tried a bunch of different things. I tried putting an LED, a set of LEDs on the back, just shooting through this way, and they weren't bright enough. Then I tried like an aquarium light bar on the back. That still wasn't doing what I wanted it to, so I decided to use an LED strip. This is just positive and negative, and it just lights up, and this is a bright white strip here, and as you can see, there are sections where you can just cut the strip along these double pads here, and then all you do is you trim away the silicone on the end, because these are made for outdoor use, so they're weatherproof, and then they have an adhesive on the back. So I've already measured out the amount I need to go around the shape of this 0, and I'm just going to go all the way around, but I'm not going to only rely on the adhesive. I'm going to 3D print these little clips and glue them in. So in between the LEDs, I'm going to put a little bit of super glue on there, and that'll hold them down to get through any kind of excessive heat or cold we have here in Canada. And then at the end of the strip, I'm going to just trim off the silicone and add some wire. So the wire that I have, what I was originally going to use is this stuff here, but it's a little bit too rigid. It's 18 gauge. I didn't have any 22 gauge like this, but I did have a bunch of 22 gauge silicone wire. And if you haven't heard about silicone wire, it's pretty cool because this casing is plastic, whereas this is silicone, so it's very soft and malleable, and it'll be great for this application. So I have a black and a red. So this will be soldered on to the LED strip. However, on the other end, it's got to go into a terminal strip. So I'm going to use this terminal strip because it's an easy way to plug all of the different numbers in and the backlighting into. Half of this is going to be red and half will be black, so positive and negative, and then they're all going to be joined right here with a common, well, the blacks are going to be a common wire that's going to be connected into all these, as well as a common one for the positive, so positive and negative. Yeah, so plugging into these, unfortunately, just using wire isn't the greatest, so I am going to use my ferrule connectors. So that's what these are. This comes in a kit. You get a whole bunch of different sizes. They're different colors as well. Unfortunately, like the black and the red, they're not the same size. The blacks are a little bit larger than the reds. It doesn't really matter because the wires are going to be color coded. So I'm just going to strip a little bit off of here, and these are really easy to use. You just stick the stripped end into there, and then you use this device that comes with it, and you just squeeze, and you can see there's a little hole there. You just put this into here, squeeze it, and then it comes out as a little solid, like a square connector on there that you can plug into terminal strips into with ease. So looking forward to using those again. I've used them a lot in the past. So that's my setup. We're going to start with the easiest one, which is the 0, and then we're going to probably try out the 9s and then end off with the 2. The 2's got a little bit more line, so I thought I'd practice on this first. So let's start with that and see how it goes. I've got the board mounted to my CNC, and you can see there's clamps in 4 corners, and I'm just going to make sure that these clamps are out of the way. So I've installed my laser guide, so I'm just going to run a tool path that I created for it to see if it's going to hit any of the clamps that are there. So it looks like the board's in the right position. The end mill is going to be able to tackle all of that, and the clamps are out of the way. Here's the house address right off CNC, and then with a bit of cleanup, what I did is I just did a quick sanding on both sides, and then I rounded over the edges on the router. Everything's ready to go. It needs to be painted now, and I put some lines on the back where I'm going to use some mounting brackets that I've designed. Now, these are the numbers, so you can see they're quite large. I think they're 6 inches, and I have created this cavity in here. That's where the LEDs are going to go, and then it's got an overhang lip all the way around, and that is for being able to just very nicely tuck right into there. For the 0, I CNC'd this at the same time, and this just plunks into here. It's a very, very tight fit, but it works. So that goes into there. The 9s also have their own insert. That goes into there. And then same with that one. Obviously, I'll paint them all before I mount them in there. And it's going to be a nice flush fit. So most of this is going to be green, match the green on our house with some black stripes on here. And I routed in, it's a little bit hard to see there, but you can see there are some little channels. They're just lines basically to help me with my painting. So that's what I'm going to do next. Paint this up, put the LEDs in there, varathane it. So I'm going to actually have all of the LED wires join up into a header. And I think I'm going to put some backlighting in here. This is going to be a bright white inside the letters, but then a warm white for the backlight, because it's going to be offset from the house. I don't know, maybe about 3 or 4 inches or so. So let's go get started and paint this thing up. Here's what it looks like with 2 coats of the green and 1 coat of the black. I haven't put some varathane on here. I'm going to do that at the very end because I'm going to switch this over, and on the back I'll be adding some plates here, protective plates for rain, as well as this terminal strip where we're going to connect all of the numbers and backlighting to. So that'll be next. Let's wire up these numbers so that they've got LEDs inside of them. This is the back of the board. I created this MDF little panel that's kind of a shroud for the numbers, but there is a little gap in here for the wires to come out. And what that's going to do is going to prevent rain or moisture from getting onto or into the wiring. And that way all the numbers will be a little bit more protected. So I'm going to add some varathane to this now, some semi-gloss, and get that protected up. Time to hook up the numbers, and I'm going to use a terminal strip for that. So I took this 12 terminal strip that I had and I just color coded with a permanent marker, 6 red and 6 black. And I'm going to just use some solid core hookup wire, and I'm just going to plug that into there, and then we're going to solder on leads from the other positive terminals and make this a common positive, and I'm going to do the same thing with negative. And then what we'll be able to do is just hook in the numbers into here, so it'll be modular, and you can just pop them out if anything ever happens, and then plug in a new one. And then there's going to be another one for the backlighting, the warm white backlighting. So that's what we're going to do next. We're just going to solder this up and get ready to plug it into the back of the surfboard. So let's do that. Well, as you can see, I've put the terminal strip on, and I've got a bunch of these wires that are attached to it from all the numbers. I think I'm going to put some split loom tubing down here to tuck these wires into it. And I also have 3D printed the shroud. It's going to go over top of here and get screwed in. That'll protect it from any kind of weathering that may occur, some water that might get into there. But the next step is to install the backlighting. This was kind of like an afterthought. I was going to put a warm white on here, but I think I'm just going to keep on going with this bit of bright white that I have. So I'm just going to start here, work my way all the way along to about there, if it'll bend in that orientation, and then one on the bottom and hook it up to my terminal strip. And I printed these little clips. They will actually get screwed down to hold the light strip in place. That's my plan. And then I'll hook it up here, and then we'll take a look at powering it on and seeing how many amps it's taking. That way you'll know what kind of power supply will drive this. So that's the next step. Let's put that together. Before I mount this to the outside of the house, I wanted to show you the completed backside. I have the LED strips mounted down with double-sided tape on that they come with, plus these little fasteners that these brackets that I put on. And I made each side to be one piece there, one here and one here, because it couldn't curve very well. And then I just put some hardcore wire in there and some double-sided, not double-sided tape. I put some hot glue on all of the joints just to protect them. And then my terminal strip is covered now with this cover plate, and my wires are shortened. Have a little bracket here for cable management. My external 2-terminal strip is ready to be plugged into the board when I need power. And then what I did is I 3D printed these little sleeves. So they are for PVC pipe. I mounted one there and one 2 feet away. And this is what they look like. So I'm going to put this end into the house, and then it gets screwed on here as through this screw, or maybe these two if I need to. And that will be offset about a 1/2 inch more than this one here. So it'll sit about 2 inches off of the outside of the house. Now to power it all up, I'm going to be using this 5 volt or this 12 volt 5 amp power supply. What's going to be plugged into that is this dusk to dawn timer. And so it'll go from the timer to the power supply, and from the power supply it'll go for a 12 volt connector. And if these LEDs are too bright, you can put in a little dimmer right here, so you can adjust the brightness level in case, hey, this is way too bright at the front of the house. Let me just turn this on, and you can see it all lit up there and looks pretty good. So you might have noticed that, hey, there's some yarn there. Let's see what that's all about. I'll flip this guy over. And I thought it'd look cool to have this twine here, I'll trim that up a bit, to look like that's what's holding it up on the house. I've seen that at Disney before in the Alani Resort on Oahu, and I thought, hey, that looks really cool. So I put some twine there. So let's get this mounted up onto the house and see what it looks like. Here's a quick update regarding powering my surfboard. Rather than using a dusk to dawn sensor, I switched to something different. And the reason for that is I've got a carport in front of my garage, and this is up in the rafters in the carport, and it's triggering a lot sooner than it should, because it gets darker in the carport than it does outside of it. So rather than using this dusk to dawn, I ditched it and I bought one of these. This is a Casa TP-Link Wi-Fi, smart Wi-Fi outlet. These things are awesome. It was a lot less expensive than the dusk to dawn sensor. This is a 15 amp, 120 volt device. You connect it with a Casa app, which is a really easy app to control, to manage, to schedule different activities. And it's working much better now, because what I do is I just plugged the power adapter for my surfboard into here and program this to turn on at sunset, which changes quite a bit in Canada. So it automatically knows, since connected to the Wi-Fi, when sunset is at any particular time of the year. And then I've got it programmed to shut off at sunrise. And it's also linked to Google Home and Alexa. So really cool device. I think I'm going to buy some more and hook them up to different devices around my house. So I'll show you what my sign looks like now after it's connected to this. Let's go over to my carport in the evening and check it out. Thanks for watching my video. Hopefully this has inspired you to make something similar to this for your house. You don't need a CNC. You can use a jigsaw to cut this out. You can use styrene for the numbers. Happy building. God bless you, and we'll see you real soon.